Legacies is the Vampire Diaries' second spin-off. The original is the first spin-off, centered on the more mature supernatural characters, while Legacies focuses on the supernatural characters as offspring. Hope is the rare triple hybrid daughter, born to Klaus and Hayley. Lizzie and Josie are the twin daughters of Joe, Alaric and Caroline, and the last of the Gemini witch coven. The plot is set in the same world as the Vampire Diaries. Each supernatural character faces difficulties that are comparable, if not identical, to those faced by their family, and the task and purpose for protagonists to be successful amid the challenges is consistent. Legacies, like the Vampire Diaries, isn't flawless, and there are elements of it that refute the Vampire Diaries.
Stop! I want to halt the brakes on this video for 1 second to remind you to hit that subscribe button, go give it a like, and leave a comment on what you think. Okay, that's it. Thank you. You may continue watching the video.
Grimoires play an important part in Bonnie's transformation into a formidable witch due to her family's supernatural background in the Vampire Diaries. Her grandmother's grimoire is a means for her to keep in touch with her ancestors and grandmother. She seeks her family's grimoire in the Gemini prison universe with Damon in order to retrieve knowledge that can help them. Furthermore, both the Vampire Diaries and the originals feature a reference to relatives and ancestors. Their ancestor witches teach, help, and at times fuel witches. Legacies lacks this profound relation to one's ancestors. Their knowledge of sorcery derives from classes and the library, not from their forefathers. This legacy isn't being carried on. Although Stefan and Damon did live in a mansion, it was nowhere near the size of the academy. It's likely that the mansion has been extended, but the audience isn't aware of this. As it stands, it resembles a living entity that continues to expand, unconstrained by its previous dimensions. The school seems to have an auditorium-style space in a few scenes. This is a space that audiences did not see on Vampire Diaries, showing an inconsistency with the show's rooms and total scale. Vervain is mentioned in Legacies but then vanishes as a plot unit. However, owing to a dispute with the water system, the entire town was on Vervain. This isn't always the case, since the humans in town get more easily manipulated. The display still lacks a historical reference to Mystic Falls. For example, the town was aware of vampires, and once devised the method to magically prevent vampires from entering. There was also a town council that was in charge of the town's heritage and protection. Now, no one in town seems to be aware of vampires. The Gemini coven has a terrifying tradition called the merge. When the twins reach the age of 22, they shall undergo the merge. This ensures that one twin triumphs and absorbs the other, killing their sibling in the process. When Legacies begins, viewers are aware that Caroline and Alaric are desperately seeking a way to ensure the survival of both their children, and then there's Dark Josie, who essentially claims that the merge occurs every 22 years, but it could happen at any moment. This goes against the established tradition in the Vampire Diaries. Stefan's Ripper personality is one of his main obstacles in the Vampire Diaries. If he feeds on human blood, it's much harder if he doesn't have his humanity turned on. The Ripper nature is discussed in Legacies, where it is stated that when vampires become shy, insecure, or gentle as humans, they could become Rippers as vampires. It isn't presented as an unusual ailment, it affects two characters. But unlike Stefan, they find it easier to resist if they have their humanity turned on. According to Alaric, they can only allow vampires who are juveniles and have no previous experience of murdering humans. However, there is a contradiction in this from the original spin-off, when Hope's first boyfriend was a classmate who had been a vampire for decades. So, if Alaric chooses a vampire for the school based on how old they are in human years, that hugely contradicts the originals. The werewolf trait is hereditary. According to the Vampire Diaries and the originals, there are also family packs available. Hayley spent the first half of her story attempting to locate her pack. When she learned that Klaus had knowledge about her pack's past and knew where they were located, she misled Tyler in the Vampire Diaries. In the originals, she discovers her pack, and the result discovered her intent and identity. Legacies describes the werewolves at the school as part of their own school pack, as if it were a fraternity or a sorority. All of the young werewolves are in the pack, regardless of their family background or ancestry. An astute observer of both the Vampire Diaries and the originals should know that Hope is meant to be older than the twins. She should be older by 2 years, but despite this, the three of them are shown as classmates of the same generation in Legacies. They have a history of having been in the same classrooms and exchanging common experiences. Unless Hope was kept back for 2 years and it was clearly not discussed in the series, this is a huge error. Caroline was a committed and fierce mother in the Vampire Diaries. As fans remember her, she was on the verge of marrying Alaric only to get a home for her daughters. She is a commanding character and is fiercely protective of her daughters, but it's inexplicable that her daughters have gone to tragedy and have faced attacks while Caroline is still missing. Caroline's absence seems to be at odds with her motives and personality, considering that she aspired to be as good a mother as her mother Liz. Lizzie has spent time with her in Europe, and Josie has sought her counsel. However, her character is severely contradicted by her long absence.